Dr. Maringkwa from the policy working group. We have Dato' Madeline Burma. She's also from the complaints and monitoring group. Dato' Lok Yemping from the education and promotion working group. Okay. So with that, I hand over to Mr. Jara to chair the press conference. Thank you.
Morning, Simon, commissioners. Simon,
Morning.
maybe just run through the journalists who are here.
Yes.
So we all know, because it's virtual, very hard to know who is speaking to.
Okay. So from the list, I can, members of the media, maybe I'll also ask you to introduce yourself if I can read out your names, because I can't see which press you are from. Alan Chong. I see Alan Chong. Hi, Alan. We're from Malaysian Insight, thank you. We have Cheryl from BFM. We have Fai Kwan from FMT. Sorry if I pronounce your name not correctly. Then we have Hadi from Benar News. We have Hakimi from FMT. We have Hao Zianxia from Oriental Daily. Kit Mang from Guanghua Press. Mandy Leong from KiniTV. Rashwin Jit from The Star. Shukri, where are you from? Maybe you can chat from where you're from. Then we have Wen Jun from Malay Mail. We have Wo, where you're from. Shukri from The Star for recording. Okay, thank you, Shukri. And Wo, where you are from, which press? From China Press. Okay, thank you. So that's all. These are all from all the members from the press at the moment. So over to you, Mr. Gerald.
Good morning, friends from the media. Thank you for coming for the press conference. With me here is Dr. Madeline Burma. Dr. Madeline and myself are from in Suhakam. We have different working groups managing different parts of Suhakam. So ours is the complaints and monitoring group. We have Dr. Ma Weng Kwai, who's the chair of the policy working group. We have Dr. Lok Yemping, who's the chair of the education and promotion working group. And we have senior officers, Dr. Chia, the secretary. Secretary means the chief of staff. And Mr. Simon, who's the deputy secretary, and Jennifer, who's the deputy secretary, and all officers. So this morning, like we've done it before, we'll just update some of the issues, but of course later on in the Q&A, you are free to query on matters of interest. So today, the first update is on there's been an ongoing protest by the Orang Asli, the Jaringan Orang Asli Kelantan, about the Negeri Dam in Kelantan. This is a dam, I think 500 over hectares being planned. Tenaga Nasional is the project holder. It is designed, as we were informed, for electricity, flood mitigation, and water. All three in one, but the Orang Aslis feel that they are going to be impacted very much because of land, the place they live, cultural heritage issues, burial site grounds. So these issues are not new for the Orang Asli community. So Suhakam played a role to organize a dialogue session with Tenaga Nasional, the Orang Asli community leaders, both the Tok Batin of the impacted villages and the Jaringan Kampung Orang Asli, together with JAKWA, Jabatan Kemajuan Orang Asli, in order, and also Setiausaha, pejabat Setiausaha Kerajaan Negeri Kelantan, in order to try to see what are the opposition to and what is the worry. So the first thing we found out that, and we know that, of course, any big development project will destroy some village and some areas belonging to the orang asli. And this is inevitable, because if we want this big press conference, this big development issue, it will surely impact some areas. And so orang asli feel it's an issue of why should they move ancestral grounds. When we queried deeper, the community said that they have not had access to the environmental impact assessment, EIA. They've not had access to the heritage impact assessment, HIA, and they've not had access to the social impact assessment, SIA, and also there's another one called the wildlife impact assessment. I think 4 reports done as a normal procedure for a good development plan. So that was the first discovery that we've requested. Tenaga Nasional has requested to get all these reports and share them with through Suhakam to the community. So I think 2 reports have already been sent over to the community. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the EIA report and the HIA report has been submitted to the orang asli as a quick response after the meeting. We also are very happy for TNB to be very open in the process, to come up with detailed information, to share their plans, and also manage the downstream impact and the impact on the forest. It's important to note that if a dam is built, it has a lifespan, maybe 50 to 100 years. And in that period, the upstream, the natural forest of the dam must be maintained in order for the dam to function. So I think the holders of a dam also have responsibility for the next generation. And this was also discussed. The Kelantan government was very interested in the project because of electricity, clean water, and also water for irrigation, plus the flood mitigation issue that has been plaguing Kelantan for many years. So it's a tough question to address, but the orang asli is saying that the question asked is, do we need a dam that is such big in size? Can we have a smaller dam? So that's the negotiation and question that is being asked. There were other concerns about by the Tok Batin impacted. They say the perpindahan ke Kampung Baru must be undertaken, and TNB is going to undertake that movement of the people. From what we found out, that the majority of the village people have agreed to move from these 2 villages, but other villages say there is an impact to surrounding areas that they fear. And so in the resettlement, they must learn from other resettlement projects that have not been successful and not to repeat the mistake. Basic facilities must be put in the new village, new resettlement places, access to school, and also compensation. Pampasan haruslah bersesuaian lah. And the difficult question is about kawasan kubur, because some of the cultural practices doesn't allow movement once a burial has taken place. So this is something that needs to be decided with the communities on how to manage when the original cemeteries are submerged by water. But this is still an ongoing conversation, and Suhakam wants to play the role as a facilitator to balance the rights of the indigenous orang asli, as well as the needs of the people in Kelantan for electricity, water, and flood mitigation. So the openness is what we need in order to find a solution that works for all. So that's the update on this issue on the Negeri Dam in Kelantan. If I move on to the next part of on issues that we want to work on, is actually just to update you of our ongoing continuous collaboration with PDRM, with the police. But first of all, we want to mengucapkan tahniah kepada Datuk Seri Akril Sani Abdullah Sani di atas pelantikan sebagai Ketua Polis Negara yang barulah. We look forward to continuing good working relationship with PDRM as we had with the previous IGP. And we hope to have a chance for him to visit us in our office or we to meet him in his office in order to develop a better working relationship because human rights is an important part of police work. It's not a by the way function. Police are custodians of law, which de facto means custodians of rights of all people in Malaysia. So we are partners in order for the police to be a much better force. We also take note of the outgoing IGP's comments about the worrying issues that he says has come up from his working. So the top policeman has said of political meddling, cartels at the top level, and also corruption in PDRM that happens. And this needs to be stopped and must be weeded out. So Suhakam continues our call for an independent oversight body. The IPCMC is the correct body that should be set up because we want no elements of suspicion on an important body like the police, even though there's a small group of bad apple, but that should not exist. And after the IGP has spoken, this becomes even more serious and the demand for an IPCMC is urgent. So we hope the government will follow through the work started off by the previous government in making the law almost ready for debate and adoption by parliament. But then it's now, I don't know where it is. We don't know the progress of that. So that's our call to PDRM. The second point of our working relationship with PDRM is we're also very happy that the custodial health units are actually completed. All trainings are ready and all physical material is ready in the lockups. The lockups mean 5 lockups, centralized lockups in Bayan Lepas, Indra Mahkota Kuantan, centralized lockup Shalang, centralized lockup of Binjang, and centralized lockup of Kepayan Sabah. The physical setup for a, well, in our common language is like a small clinic in the lockup, but what it's called a custodial health unit, and enough of the equipment for a doctor, nurse, and an assistant to be there in order to check on detainees who are brought in. So this will actually, in the long run, take away suspicion that any issues of death in custody or torture is all because of police fault. So we know sometimes it is police fault, sometimes it is not, based on the investigation. But this is a good way forward. And this is a standard in many countries where doctors must verify the condition, the health condition of a detainee, not a police officer who's only trained to be a good policeman, but not a medical person who has to jaga kesihatan of that. So everything is ready, the training is ready, the physical material is ready. So we're now just waiting for the launch to happen. I think with the new IGP in place, we should work on to get a launch so that the two, our plan is to start off with 2 to launch the Kuantan and Bayan Lepas for the next 6 months. And then with the learnings from that, we can launch all the other 3. So this is exciting. Malaysia has some good news that we should always put on the table. Usually it's not so good news when we discuss, but I'm very happy to speak about this. Then if we continue on the matters of other issues in Malaysia that also have come to attention. I think the recent few weeks, there have been a lot of interest about a few small protests. I use the word small deliberately because it is actually small. There's a perhimpunan aman that termasuk perhimpunan di Tawau berkenaan EMCO. This was, I think, a protest about a lack of food for kampung under EMCO. perhimpunan di parlimen, it's called a buka puasa, buka parlimen, perhimpunan. And then also there was a solidarity for activist Fahmi Reza, and also a Workers' Day celebration, Dataran Merdeka. I think all this is what we think peaceful protest, which is guaranteed under a federal constitution, under the Peaceful Assembly Act. And the logic of people expressing themselves should not disappear in any moment of our history of Malaysia. And I think if they have voiced out their point and then they go home, I think that is a fair way of exercising your right as a citizen of the country. We realize Suhakam memang sedarlah pihak polis menjalankan tugasnya. But we think, is there a necessity to call them in, to keep them detained or arrest them? And because if the exercise of the right is legitimate, then you can still investigate, but there's no need for such action. Because now we know PDRM is stretched because of the COVID-19 management in our country. We also, so I think, today, just to alert the press, I think our Children's Commissioner also released a press statement on the arrest of the children in Batu Pahat and Sentul. Maybe Simon, we can just also add that press statement in our chat box for the media. I think it was just sent to your media houses.
I'll check the group, the chat column.
Yeah, the Children's Commissioner is very concerned that children are being arrested, handcuffed, and their identities are made public. So it's a child rights protection that must be adhered to. But I think the bottom line is there a need to arrest these children in the first place? Why not a warning? Maybe it's not a serious matter of concern. And we don't think peaceful assemblies to express yourself are actually serious issues of concern in the country. It's expressing something people are unhappy with. So with that, then we move to the other area of worry is about the, I think that there's a lot of concern about the issue of death in custody. So I think in 2020, tahun Suhakam telah menyiasat 12 kes. I think out of that, 6 is in prison, 4 in lockup, and 2 in pusat tahanan immigration. Out of the 12 cases, only 1 case has an inquest. That is, I think, kematian Justice Kevin, the IPD Bantung. Only 1 case has an inquest. So first of all, I think Suhakam's call since 2005 or 2006, commissioners from that era, that every death in custody, I think, deserves and must an inquest must be held to ascertain the cause of that death, in order to push away any suspicion, if there is, of police or prison or any officers being involved in that death in custody. But until today, we don't have this. As we said, in the 12 last year that came to Suhakam, only 1 had an inquest. And up to now, this year, Suhakam is investigating 6 death in custody cases, 3 in prison, 3 in IPD. And we've only concluded the case of 1 of that death in custody case. And that is the case of Ibrahim Abu Sahid in IPD Perak Tengah. And that was completed on 21st of April. It was also no inquest. So all the cases today don't have an inquest. So after our investigation of interviewing 12 people, that includes officers, medical officers, forensic and family members, and the police sentries. So we come to our conclusion that from our input from the medical officers and the forensic, there was no cause of trauma or physical injury. So the worry and the suspicion that there could have been torture elements, because the only way to ascertain is to look at the body. Experts, our forensic team from the government checks, and then we interview them and to get all their details. So our conclusion also doesn't seem to show that there is any elements caused by torture. From the medical records, the deceased had seizures because of high blood pressure when he came to the hospital. So it's because of history of medical history that should have been addressed. So this is where I think, sadly, he has passed away, and this is based on a complaint from a family member that we have taken up, and we have completed and submitted our show and our conclusion to the authorities as well as back to the family member. The important part is every detainee must be checked and ascertained by a doctor to know what's the pre-existing condition and what medicine that needs to happen. And this is actually part of the section 10 of the Lockup Rules 1953. Pegawai perubatan hendaklah seberapa yang boleh memeriksa tiap-tiap banduan dengan seberapa segera selepas ia masuk ke dalam lockup dan akan mengesahkan sama ada banduan itu layak dipenjara, dan jika banduan itu disabitkan kesalahannya diberi apa jenis kerja yang boleh dibuatnya. So the point is, this needs to be ascertained so that this kind of medical issues don't get overlooked, and then by the time it's found out, it's too late and a life is gone. So I think this is where we are realizing the role and function of medical officers are crucial if we are going to ensure the number of deaths in custodies will decrease. So that's a little bit on update. The other cases are still ongoing investigation in Suhakam. So we'll probably come back to you when we resume our next conference. So I think we also want to take this moment to also congratulate our new Commissioner General of Penjara, Datuk Nordin, to being appointed as a new post. He's been a good partner of Suhakam for many decades. We've worked together, done training together, and we look forward to working with him because of the reform-mindedness of the prison authorities in order to improve the prison conditions, to improve, to look at overcrowding, to look at even issues like steady, license, early release, parole. So we look forward to working with the prison department on this matter. I think, yes, I see the two presidents from our Children's Commission already in the chat group, so you can also have a look at that. And I think one other pressing issue that needs the attention of the government, which we have advised the government over and over again, is the overcrowding in the immigration detention centers. I think without the access to UNHCR in order to ascertain if amongst them there are asylum seekers or refugee person like the Rohingya, that overcrowding will continue. And our question is, why are the Rohingya still kept there? Because there is no possibility of deportation of them to Myanmar because of the situation there, and also they don't have the identity and recognition. So I think we need a practical approach. Malaysia has done well before in managing this, but many asylum seekers are stuck there, and it's been, I think, almost a year and a half now that the UNHCR has not been allowed access to this. We're not saying to go in and release all of them. No, no, no. There are people who have violated our immigration laws, come in and for economic reasons, and their pass has expired, or they came in through not the formal legal channels, and they rightfully should be deported through the proper channels. But there's another group of people amongst, I think now, if there's about 18,000 in the detention centers, there could be 1,000 or more, thousands plus, who belong to a community that cannot be sent back, cannot be refoulement back because of they ran away from their country for fear of persecution or fear to life. And these are called asylum seekers. And Malaysia has done well for decades, and this is our moment to continue doing well. And I don't see any reason why UNHCR is not allowed to be a partner to the Malaysian government in order to assess the veracity and validity of their claim. If not, they will be languishing there, I don't know, for long more. So this is another area of big concern that we have written to the Director General of Immigration, to the Home Ministry, to advise them that and to seek their input on this matter. I think with that, I think I've covered these few areas that we plan to share with all of you today. And if I, maybe before I open up to the media, I want to also give a space to our other commissioners if you want to add on anything. Dr. Madeline? Okay, thank you. Dato' Ma?
I think it's been covered, yeah.
Okay, Dato' Ma?
Yes, thank you, Gerald, for organizing this PC and also giving an opportunity to say a few words. Perhaps you can give an update on the PI, on what's happening in, what's his name, Helmi's case.
Okay.
That will be of interest. And whether or not we can make any comments on the slow rollout of the vaccinations.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It's very current, and I think it really, people are really very, very anxious.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dato' Ma, may I request for yourself to maybe update the media on our role and function in watching brief in the courts? I think that will be of interest to many Malaysians. That we actually take an interest. Maybe we can do that in a short while if you can get the info.
Yes, let me know. Boleh.
Okay. Dato' Ma has. I'll just pick it up. Maybe I'll hand it over to Dato' Lok if you want to add anything, Dato' Lok. Sorry, Dato' Lok here. Dato' Lok was here. Okay, maybe she's not here. Okay, Prof. Dato' Azia, if you want to add in, I've shared your statement, Children's Commissioner statement to media, Dato' Azia. Do you want to add anything at this point? Can't hear you, Prof. We can't hear you.
Yeah, mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gerard. No, I don't think I want to add anything. You have said what needs to be said, but if there's any question, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, on the public inquiry of Joshua, Hilmi, and Ruth that is ongoing. Sadly, the only reason for the delay is because, as you know, of the COVID. We put dates and then we get delayed. But we are at the tail end. I think we are coming to probably 1 more or 2 more days of inquiry, and then the final submissions, which is going to happen in the next within this month or next month, and then that will bring us to the end for our final conclusions and the report to the public. So we are at the tail end. We feel bad, and we know many people are waiting for it, but unfortunately the dates have been moving around quite a bit because of the MCO and stuff. But rest assured, we have 1 more day of 1 or 2 more days of open hearing, and then it's a conclusion and submission by the parties, and then the panel will decide within the next 2 months, I'm guessing. Thank you. And maybe on the comment of the concern on the vaccination, I think Suhakam has actually called for, I think this was very much earlier, if I'm not mistaken, 6 to 8 months ago. Suhakam has put out a statement that we believe that vaccination is the way to go. That we even said that while the freedom of choice is there, but public health nature of vaccination to protect all actually may even override the individual rights not to be vaccinated, which is a debate that is now ongoing. But I think it is time for Malaysians to have an open conversation. We seek more information, and I think the Minister, Khairi Jamaluddin, has been talking to the media, to the public regularly. But I think much more information about the procurement process, why the delay, the uncertainties. I mean, we're very happy that the AstraZeneca vaccination got such a good uptake. I think that's a good sign that Malaysians want vaccination. I think people are waiting now, but people are asking why they're on the wait list for so long. So I think Minister has explained that it's going to start rolling out faster, June, July, August, and we take that in. But the more information given out is better. There are questions about even public disclosure of procurement processes. And I think my colleagues here would agree that maybe it's time federal and state government work closer together even on the vaccination rollout. No? In the last few days, it seems to be like Selangor and federal is saying one thing and both wanting to find a solution for its people. And we are all people subjects of country and king. So we're all here. And we need a consolidated rollout, and it has to be faster. And I think any aspersions about maybe this happened, that happened is not good for confidence building. So I think Suhakam is in full support of the quicker the rollout is, but gaps must be addressed publicly with information. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Dato' Ma, you want to come in on the our watching brief in the course?
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Just a quick word on this, members of the press, and thank you for taking time to join us in this PC. As you know, many times cases of public interest that concerns human rights end up in court, and especially cases like deaths in custody and any other high-profile cases where liberties are involved and so on. And very often, Bar Council will assist Suhakam by giving us names of lawyers who are prepared to act pro bono and represent interests of Suhakam in the courts by way of watching briefs and at times as amicus curiae. Now, those of you who may not be familiar with this terms, very quick word, watching brief is simply getting somebody to be present in court, usually a legally trained person who may or may not be sitting at the bar table itself, but most certainly he will be in court witnessing the proceedings. He may or may not be on record in the judge's notes as well, but the idea is for him to listen, watch, and then to brief Suhakam on what has been happening. Yeah, just so that it's a very current update of what's happening. The other category is where a person acts as amicus curiae for Suhakam. Again, very often these are lawyers that are acting pro bono, coming from the Bar Council. And the idea is a little more proactive than just holding watching brief. They will, with leave of court, they will be seated at the bar table and take part in the proceedings as though he's acting for one of the parties in court. And the basis for such a role is, of course, because they're interested in public interest litigation. Yeah, so it's not just watching quietly and reporting, but actually taking part in the proceedings. Now, why is all this relevant, and why are we mentioning is this, that the right to holding a watching brief is actually a common law right, it's just as much as amicus curiae. Amicus curiae simply means friend of the court. And this is also within the inherent jurisdiction of the court, within their inherent powers under Court of Judicature Act and so on. But recently this has been brought into focus again, because we are in the process of making proposals for amendment to our Suhakam Act, Act 99. And it was thought that it would be useful to have these powers spelled out in the Act, so that when a case comes up and somebody appears before the court on behalf of Suhakam, and if it's asked, what's your basis? Why are you here? Are you just a busybody? Is Suhakam poking his nose here and there? There's some justification, at least a statutory justification in the Act itself. So this is where we are at. We have made the proposals and it is still under discussion. Unfortunately, not all government agencies and departments are fully in support. They say, well, you have a right, and you do things as before. But what we are saying is that, yes, the right has been there. It has always been subject to the court discretion. In fact, even after the amendments, if we do get these amendments, it will still be subject to court discretion. But at least it is spelled out and not just leave it to whims and fancies, so to speak. So yeah, that's about what I want to report on that. Hopefully the amendments will come about and we can have this in the Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato' Ma. So I think we've finished our presentation. I think we can leave it now to the media. Simon, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sejarah. Thank you, Dato' Ma, commissioners.
Thank you.
So members of media, if you have any questions, you can unmute and just post your questions to the commissioners. You may also use the chat column to type out your questions. So the floor is open for question and answer now. And please introduce yourself.
Hi, Gerald.
Hey, morning.
Hi, Rashid from the Star here. Gerald, I want to ask about the UNHCR thing about being allowed into the immigration detention centers. Have you all asked the Home Ministry why UNHCR is not allowed in? I know you all wrote a letter, but has there been a response from them on why UNHCR is not allowed in? Thanks.
So we've not got a formal response, but from our dialogue with the agencies, I think even we had a dialogue with MKN. From what we were made to understand is that there is a policy being updated or being worked on to ascertain a Malaysian policy for verification of asylum seekers that will be in sync with the UNHCR procedure, which is a good thing. I mean, we are in support of that. Most countries have that, an internal policy and then a UNHCR, and these two can cohere, which is a good thing. But I think it's taken too long. It's taking too long, and I don't think you need to suspend functioning of UNHCR body just while we are getting that policy in place. We can do both in tandem, and when that comes into force, and then we use the new criteria of working together with the state policy as well as the UNHCR. But as it is now, all we know is that the ban is still on, and that should not happen because it's a little bit illogical for not bringing out the Rohingyas. And I'm afraid to say this, but in the original list that we've submitted to the Director General of Immigration, I think last year, there's a list of, I don't know, somebody correct me, 100 plus people from different, from Syria, from Palestine, and there's a long list of people also waiting after being ascertained by UNHCR to be, I mean, you can't send them back to these places because they are war-torn, and they should be allowed out into the society, not as a free person, but with the recognition that they are under this UNHCR card as a temporary resident here, because there's no point keeping them in detention. So we have shared this concern with the Director General, with the Home Ministry. We're not sure why they are keeping them there for years. It's no possibility of what to do if you cannot deport them, and we should not deport them if they are running away from their situation of war, criminality, and danger. We should not be sending them back. Then we'll be in violation of the non-refoulement principle. It doesn't matter if we have ratified the Refugee Convention or not, but that's an international law principle for anyone. Thank you, Rashminji.
Hi, Gerald. It's Annabelle from Malaysiakini. Yeah. So just on that point, you mentioned that there are some Syrian and Palestinian refugees possibly in detention. Do we know how many are we talking about, especially Palestinian refugees?
I don't have the list now, but suffice to say that there is a mix of different nationalities in that list who continue to remain of concern for us, because we have checked while we went in, and then some we found out when we had our dialogue with the UNHCR. But the motivation is not about pointing fingers and saying, hey, you know, why are they here? The question needs to be answered by Malaysian government. Why keep them in when there is nowhere else to send them? Is this a punishment? I don't think so, because Malaysia is very good on our solidarity on many of these countries. Then why keep them in? If there is no solution, the best is let them be processed by UNHCR, or even if the government, I know the government also has an IMM 13 procedure for Syrians. I mean, use whichever procedure that works well, but they should not be in detention for so long, because they've not committed any crime. They only difficult situation forced them to run away from their home country to seek temporary refuge. So Annabelle, I don't have the actual figures, but let me try to get that info if we can during this press conference. I'll get back to you. But I think that's the non-Rohingya communities in the detention center, but there's also a large number of Rohingyas. I think if my guess is correct, I think 1,000 plus. Simon, am I right? For the Rohingyas?
Yes.
Around, okay, a rough number of 1,000 plus. And even keeping Rohingyas in the detention center is to no avail. Keeping them for what? Because you cannot deport them to Cox's Bazar, because Cox's Bazar is a Bangladesh sovereign country. You can't deport someone to a refugee camp. You can only deport someone back to their home country. And Rohingyas, you know, don't have documents. The Myanmar government has never recognized them and made them stateless. So they are still fighting for their rights as citizens. So in that interim period, they should not be in detention. They should be allowed out. And Malaysia has been a compassionate society. We have allowed space for Rohingyas to live amongst us. And I use the word again, temporary. It may be in decades, but they're still not citizens of the country. They will never be. These are refugees who would go home once Myanmar is in a better state and they can go back to their kampong. And when we've interviewed them, they said this is not a way to live here because they cannot study, they cannot work legally. They want to go back to their home kampong, but what to do? They just can't at this moment. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Is there anything on the chat box?
No question in the chat box.
Okay.
Any more questions? Anyone?
Hi, Gerald.
Yes, please.
June from Laymail.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned about the death in custody cases, right? That every case needs to have an inquest. So, how many cases are there right now that has not have an inquest yet?
The list that comes before us is what we have been alerted to, or a family member or someone has made a complaint. So I'll give you an example. In 2020, we investigated 12 death in custody cases. I mean, it's from police, immigration, as well as prison. But out of the 12, this is a sample, only one having an inquest now, Justice Kevin. The rest have no inquest. This year's case, we have 6 that has come to our attention. I use the word come to our attention, meaning there are many more death in custody cases that the family members accept, and then they're buried, and that's case closed. And we're not saying an inquest means liability or guilty verdict on the police or immigration or prison. We're saying inquest means the proper authorities, the courts will determine the facts and then come to a far better conclusion on the validity of the so-called suspicion. So I think the actual numbers of deaths in custody, Simon, do we have the numbers for last year? Official figures?
No, we don't have any official figures yet.
That's for last year. The previous year, to give a sample in terms of quantum, just a moment, Vanjun, we can give you a 2019.
I'll get back to you, Mr. Gerald.
Huh?
I'll get back to you. We have
the 2019, we can give you, we got some facts and figures about how many people died while in prison or died while in lockup, and then you can use that as a ballpark figure to know what's the numbers.
All right,
we'll get back to you shortly.
All right, thanks.
Other colleagues, kalau ada apa-apa soalan dalam bahasa Melayu, silakan ya.
Hi Gerald, I'm Shahira from CIJ.
Yes, Shahira.
Hi, regarding the refugee issue, you mentioned that there's a policy that's being implemented but it's taking too long. Was there like a specific timeline or deadline given for this?
Not that we know, but all we've been updated is that it's almost done and it should be at the higher ups of government. That's all we've been updated. But there's no clear timeline or deadline for it. And I want to reassert, I think it's a good way forward to come up with a state policy, a government policy on how to manage this. So together with UNHCR, government is involved in the assessing, processing of asylum seekers. But it's okay, you can take your time, but that does not need to impede the present system at place, because that stopping of UNHCR for now means thousands don't have access and no chance to check the validity or veracity of their claim as asylum seekers. Yeah, and we are not talking about millions. We are just talking about 1,000 plus numbers. So it's not huge. The bulk of maybe the 18,000 now in the detention centers are legally in violation of immigration laws and probably waiting for deportation back to home country. And we all know the delay in deportation is also because of the COVID scenario. It's not easy to deport people back to home country because of COVID concern, lack of flights or ships or buses, So it's compounded that crowding of the immigration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ada apa-apa lagi soalan atau komen or anything to add from other colleagues and commissioners here? Oh, ada Hafiz ada satu komen. Sekarang, thank you Hafiz. Sekarang PKP dan kes semakin naik, banyak syarikat dan kilang masih enggan untuk membenarkan pekerja untuk work from home and still mengarahkan pekerja datang ke pejabat. Okay, so comment. Commissioners, anybody wants to take this on? Banyak syarikat, because it says that the cases are high and also it's an MCO PKP, but kilang and syarikat is still demanding workers to come to their office or to the factories and not work from home. So any comment on that point? So mungkin salah satu isu adalah, first of all, we are very happy that the testing, COVID testing has increased. So lebih banyak testing, lebih banyak lah kita tahu berapa ramai yang terkena dengan virus COVID ni. The numbers are high. So that one is a good process. We should have more testing because then we know, and then people can isolate themselves either at quarantine home or hospital. But that's a good way to take them out of society. Sebab sekarang tidak tahu, mungkin senang untuk menjangkiti orang yang lain lah. Yang kedua tu, sebab isu ekonomi adalah satu isu yang serius, and I think that's why I think our commission study dah bagi tahu rollout vaccination is the answer, secepat mungkin dengan prosedur yang sebaik mana yang boleh lah. So mungkin kita juga rasa bagus sekarang kerajaan sudah membuka ruang untuk kerajaan negeri pun ada ruang untuk membuat vaccination. Syarikat-syarikat pun boleh apply kepada MITI untuk memastikan pekerja-pekerja kilang dia tu ada prosedur vaccination. So bagi saya, jawapan dia mungkin lebih ke arah vaccination, dan kita setujulah kalau pejabat itu tidak perlu kamu ke pejabat, boleh work from home. Tapi setengah tu kilang tu, kalau you work from home, kilang tu tak jalan. So it's a difficult issue, it's a difficult economic issue. Tapi walaupun kilang tu perlu masih lagi berjalan atau giat dalam dia punya aktiviti, apakah SOP yang telah dimasukkan supaya kalau dulu kilang tu 1,000 orang, adakah kita memastikan sekarang ada social distancing, kapasitinya boleh dikurangkan sedikit supaya lebih selamat. I think that's sesuatu yang harus dijaga oleh KKM dengan Kementerian Sumber Manusia lah. I think, tapi bagi saya jawapan dia bukan clear cut semua stop balik rumah dan ada collapse ekonomi pula, tapi clear cut semua kerja pun tanpa was-was juga akan membawa gejala yang lebih banyak. So mungkin roll out of vaccination quick, and kalau terpaksa kerja di sektor-sektor yang memang tak ada harapan yang lain lah sebab ada machinery yang perlukan pekerja, then make sure they are safe, make sure ada distancing. Kalau kapasiti dia dulu ada mesin yang 100, mungkin sekarang kena kurangkan mesin lah sedikit dan ruang antara pekerja. Datuk Madeline, go ahead please.
Thank you Gerald, very good response. Cuma saya nak tambah saya nak tambah di sini. Saya lebih melihat there is a need for what we call bersasar. You know, the MCO tu, you cannot do it throughout the whole nation. It needs to be what we call targeted, where the red zones are, because you cannot close down or lock down semua sektor ataupun semua state. So number one, it has to be bersifat bersasar. Number two, I agree with Gerald that we need to percepatkan the roll out vaccination, itu sangat penting. Number tiga, kerajaan needs to work out increase in terms of swab test. Itu sangat penting sekarang sebab ini adalah cara untuk kita menjaga kehidupan, memastikan the first and foremost is kehidupan, livelihood and life, to save life. Dan baru nombor dua bagi saya is economy. So once we solve the pandemic, then to a large extent we can address the or alleviate the problem caused by COVID-19. Itu saja Gerald. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Terima kasih Datuk Madeline. Mungkin Prof Azia, there's a question, mungkin Prof can take it. The detained refugee and are children included? Maybe you can speak a little bit about children also being detained.
Well, yes. Terima kasih Gerald. There are a lot of children. I think when we visited the one in Kawi, the children, the one that we interviewed are all children, girls from age 13 to 16. So to us, the number of children as refugees are quite many. When the three good in Kawi, and we I mean somehow or other I feel that it's also part of it. Is kind of like trafficking. So that is the reason why I feel that something had to be done, because these are children. Some came accompanied, and many of the young girls came unaccompanied, and they are here, quote unquote, view for marriage. So that to me is trafficking, and also child marriage and so on and so forth. So they are children, and I think we had the numbers then, but we were not supposed to tell, how many we got the number. The one in Langkawi that we visited, yes, they are children.
Dr. Azia,
yeah.
When you mentioned when was this? When was this lawatan to the Langkawi Center?
We went in June. I can't remember when we. After that, the 3 boats that arrived in Langkawi.
In August. August last year.
Before we went to Sebagai, in August. That was the visit, and then if you remember, some were actually prosecuted from that case in Langkawi. That's why we went and visit, and we went to the center where this is a PK, and I think it's a camp that was used, and it's overcrowded. To me, it's overcrowded, and there were many young girls and also children. In fact, from one, there were 2 children when the mother died in the boat, if you remember from the report. So they are younger children, and they are being looked after by just some of the ladies in there. There were a lot of mothers and babies, mothers and children, and also young girls.
Prof. Azia, you want to add anything about giving birth or pregnancy in immigration detention centers?
Well, the thing is, I visited also some of the immigration detention center here in Bukit Jalil and Sebagai, and I do know that the children. That's another issue. The definition of children to them, they are with their mother until they are about 10, if they are boys. Yeah. But above 10, they will be put in a different place. And then for mother and babies, I mean, the one in Bukit Jalil is quite, they have like beds and things like that. But otherwise, they're just in one big dome. They were together with all the other mothers and all the other toddlers. To me, it's toddlers. And then certain children who have come to age 13, 14, they are being kept in another block. So even for the girls, they are kept separate from mothers and toddlers, and they are with the adult, with the woman. So to us, children are under 18, but to the immigration definition, children, once they come to about 10, 11, they will be moved to if they are boys, with much bigger or adult male. So in terms of giving birth and all that, I do know some actually give birth in detentions, and they have no, I mean, it is all being provided very minimum to me. And I personally think that mother and babies and children should be kept elsewhere. The place is not conducive for children and their mothers.
Thank you.
On this, children kept with adults and all that, what was Suhakam's sure recommendation? And
we are working on the ATD, alternative to detention. And in fact, I think according to the Ministry of Women, the pilot project is going to start, and I think they start with 5 children, only 5. So these children are going to be staying with families. It's like fostering a very good family-based environment. I would think that all refugees, or in particular where children are there, they should be, at least if they have a family, I think we should have some sort of the family environment. I mean, it is not fault of the child to be here in Malaysia. And some of the children, if they are accompanied, they were brought with their parents are there, and they should be kept in a family-based kind of environment. And those who are unaccompanied, I think if we can, move on to the ADT, alternative to detention, where these children are being given to various foster families so that they could stay there until their cases are being sorted out. I think children should not be kept in detention centers, immigration detention centers. It's not suitable for them. They have no space, no place to play. I mean, as much as the immigration officers, they try their utmost best to, and even the warden, they try to make time for these children, having some sort of classes. But the majority of the one in Langkawi, the girls, they all can read the Quran now, and they were just focusing on religious issues, but nothing else. They have no activities except being in that compound. So it's not suitable for children.
Thank you. Any other questions before we give you some of the answers for the earlier facts and figures?
Actually, I want to ask Prof Azia. You said you visited in Langkawi. You visited Langkawi Detention Center in August. Has there been any follow-up to that since?
Well, we wrote. I have written to the minister at the end and requested that something had to be done, and actually, suggesting that even MAPO would look into it, because if it's about trafficking, because these children should be rescued and kept in a place of safety. That has been done, but we have no response from KDN to our letters. So that's about it. As far as I know, we have not been back to Langkawi to see the situation.
So, Prof Azia, do we know if the girls whom you say were trafficked here for marriage and all that, are they still at the center or have they been rescued already?
I'm not sure. I think they're still there in Langkawi, because even the staff that were looking after that center were saying that they themselves are not, they don't have proper place as an office, proper place to rest. I mean, they were also complaining, but that is for the immigration and Rela staff. What more for the children? At the moment, I think so far we managed to, write letters and hoping that not many more is going to be prosecuted in terms of they were considered illegal immigrants at that time, and to us they are refugees. We know where they come from, and they need to be assimilated. We also requested that UNCHR be allowed in to sort them out and be given the NCHR card, but so far we have not heard anything from KDN. So that's what it is at the moment. Unless Gerard, so I don't think we have heard anything from them.
No, I think you're right. They remain status quo, still in the Camp Awasan. Okay, any other questions from members of the media? Boleh soalan ke komen? Boleh letak di chat box pun boleh.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one clarification to make. Earlier you mentioned the Negeri Dam, right? So yes. Basically, because the complaint to Suhakam was that the orang asli, well, obviously they don't want a dam, but now it looks like the dam will go ahead, right? It's just that the communities will be placed elsewhere. That is.
Yeah. So from what we were informed, it looked like at that meeting, Tenaga told us that they were waiting for the Suruhanjaya Tenaga. I think that is a Electricity Commission or Suruhanjaya Tenaga. I think that has the final say for green lighting this after all the things. So I think that was where it was, but I haven't heard whether it's been green lighted, but it looked like it was going in that direction. But I think Tenaga was still concerned on how to ensure that they could find an amicable way forward to balance out the demands of the Orang Asli. And also the Orang Aslis, there's 2 kampungs directly impacted who have a majority said they are ready to move, but also the other Orang Aslis, some there and some around, are also worried about the broader implications. So I think if it's going to be done, it has to be done with as much information, much inclusion so that everyone can benefit. And we have enough of dams done in both Sabah, Sarawak, Semenanjung that had very big implications of indigenous people. Also, the resettlement has not been great or horrible. So I think we have lessons not to repeat them. Yeah. Okay. If some facts and figures, I think we just were checking. In 2019, there was death in prison, 405%. That's the number. And we also got, that's for 2019. These are usually what we get from the official figures, and then we publish it in our annual report. And from that 405 figures, what we were informed is majority of them passed away or died in hospital when they were transferred to hospital for illnesses. But this is a question, it needs to be verified if there's no other reasons for the death except for health. And it is a given in prison that there are long sentences and people stay, and could be age, could be sicknesses. So that's the numbers, but 405. And then immigration, we don't have the 290 number, but we were informed that the death in custody in immigration until June 2020 is 23%. That died while in the detention center. So again, the question is, if we had inquest for all these cases, I mean, there will be no suspicion. It will be above board. We can say, yeah, we have the facts, very easy. But the question is, immigration centers are also temporary detention facilities. Prison are the only long-term detention facilities. Lockups are the shortest. Immigration is also a temporary. So why do we have death in custody in these cases? Given people are human beings and they are subject to health reasons and conditions, and they may die. But this should be pronounced by through a proper forensic inquest that can come to a conclusion. That's on the first part on some facts and figures. On the second part about, I mean, I'm happy to note that since that earlier letter we sent to the Director General when we met in late, I think 2019 or mid 2019, he was of the view also that people like from Palestine and Syria should not be in. So I think that list has now come down to a smaller list. I'm really happy to know that as of April 2020, there are 16 non-Myanmar persons still in detention. I think of this, from what we gathered, it is 5 Palestinians. There are no Syrians there now, so which is this is good news from the original list of, I think, 100 plus or 200 plus that we sent. And the Rohingya list as of April was 259, but we know that like Fazia and myself, we visited the Camp Awasan, the boat people, so that numbers have increased much more to about 1,000 plus now for Rohingyas. But non-Rohingyas, there are 16 non-Myanmar Rohingyas, but also given that not all refugee people seeking asylum is only Rohingyas, because there are also the Chain, Kachin, Shan, they're all different ethnic groups that also flee that scenario, that situation because of fear of persecution or fear of right to life. And 38 are non-Rohingyas. 38 are non-Rohingyas, but Myanmar individuals. 16 are non-Myanmar, that means other nationalities, which include 5 Palestinians. So this sort of gives an indication that, but this is April 2020 figures because there's no update since then. And that means that the majority in our detention centers are those who are awaiting deportation for violation of Immigration Act, and rightfully they should be sent home where they are citizens of that country. Okay, is there any other further queries? Okay, if I don't see any more queries, comments, questions, but you can always reach out to the Suhakam team if you need to get any more information after this. Our commissioners are here. And also, I think just to update you on Datuk Ma made a point about the our watching brief. I think this is a work as a Human Rights Commission because we are mandated to give advice on policy and law. So understanding court cases as it's unfolding is important, and I think it's explained the mechanics of both watching brief and amicus curiae. I think Suhakam's work has increased on this front. Just to give you a sense of the numbers, we started doing this in 2010. In 2018, there were 20 watching briefs undertaken by Suhakam. So some of these cases continue because you start until the case is completed. 2019, 22 watching brief. In 2020, we had 12 watching brief and 1 amicus curiae. And in 2021, to date, we have 2 watching brief. When I said 2, doesn't mean the others have all completed. So it's like it's cumulative, The cases take on some years, and then the lawyers acting on our behalf will also be there in the name of Suhakam. So these are some of the figures provided by the Policy and Law Working Group that Dr. Ma chairs. Okay, if there is no other questions, commissioners, anything else to add before we hand it to Simon to close? Dr. Ma? And Prof. Azia?
Thank you. I just wanted, when you are sharing on watching brief, OCC also sent lawyers for watching brief on in cases of children. So
okay. So in addition to that, there's the Children's Commissioner's Office also takes up cases for watching brief on children's matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Madeline, anything to add? No. Okay. Thank you so much for being here and coming. We hope to have this in a more regular fashion, so we get a chance to discuss with you on many matters, and more commissioners here also a very good way to take up your questions and comments. Simon, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald. Thank you, commissioners, Dr. Ma, Dr. Madeline, Prof. Azia, and members of the media. Thank you for joining. So if you have any more clarifications or questions to ask, you can ask through our media division, Shikin, and we are more than happy to provide you more details. So thank you, and until we meet you again. So thank you and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Suhakam.
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you, everyone.
Members
Thanks
of the
for
press.